Hello friends, I am Dr. K.D. Mishra and we are starting a lecture series based on PowerPoint presentation for those who are preparing for pre-medical examination such as NEET. We are beginning with the first lecture, the living beings, the characteristics of living beings, or those characters which differentiates living beings from non-living. There are 7 basic characters of life. Number 1, all living things are made up of cells. All living things use energy. All living things respond to a stimuli. All living things can reproduce. All living things grow and develop. All living things change to fit into their environment, what we call adaptations. All living things have a genetic material. We know it as the DNA. Coming on to the first point, all living things are made up of cells. As you know, cells are the smallest structural and functional units of living beings which can carry out life processes. The living beings which are made up of a single cell are called unicellular. In those, all the activities, all the functions are carried out by a single cell, and the organisms which are made up of more than one cell are called multicellular. In that case, the body is made up of many specialized cells which perform specific functions, like skin cells for protection and sensation, bone cells, the nerve cells, root cells in case of plants, the cells of leaf, etc. Coming on to the second point, that is metabolism. Metabolism is the sum of chemical reactions that take place within each cell of living organism that provides energy. This metabolism can be divided into two, anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism is a metabolic process in which complex molecules are synthesized from simpler molecules. For storage of energy, it is a constructive process. We can call it constructive metabolism, like photosynthesis, in which the plants with green pigment chlorophyll uses carbon dioxide present in the air and water to form carbohydrate. Another component of metabolism is catabolism. It is a process in which complex molecules are broken down to simpler ones with release of energy, such as respiration, in which glucose molecule is broken and the energy is produced in terms of ATP. We know that all of us, all living beings, can use the energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate, that is, we call it the energy currency of the cell, ATP. So we can say the cellular organization and the metabolism that takes place within the cells is the defining property of all living beings. Coming on to the second characteristic feature of living beings, that all living things uses energy. We know that the only source of energy for us is sun, and the sunlight is used by the plants to produce food by the process called photosynthesis. In this process, the radiant energy, that is light of the sun, is converted into chemical energy in the form of carbohydrate like glucose. Only plants can produce their own food, therefore they are called producers. The animals cannot produce their food. They obtain energy or food from the plants and then they are called consumers. Coming on to the third point, all living things respond to a stimuli. You know, all of us, including plants and animals, we respond to the changes that occurs in our environment, whether it is a change of temperature, whether it is change in light, availability of light, or somebody touches you, you feel pain, so on and so forth. A plant bends towards the light source. If you keep a plant near the window of your room, it will bend towards the light. You know, the sunflower changes the direction with the direction of sun during daytime. Sensitive plant, which we sometimes call touch me not, the mimosa pudica, is shriveled when it is touched. When we move out in a warmer climate, sweating occurs. In case of cold, there is shivering. You know, the calotis can change its body color. A porcupine, which has got so many spines on its body, erects its spines when it is frightened. And a dog barks when it feels some danger, so on. Consciousness and awareness. Consciousness is the state of being aware, alert, of what is going on around. We are conscious, the defining property of living organisms. Then comes the awareness. It is a state of consciousness where the sense data can be confirmed by an observer. You see, when we see to some person, you see, immediately we can identify him, whether he's your friend or who he is. We, the human beings, are the only animals who are aware of themselves. Coming on to the fourth property of living beings, all living things can reproduce. You know, reproduction is a process in which new individuals or offsprings are produced by their parents and they are similar to their parents. Reproduction is essential for the survival of all the species of living beings. Non-living beings cannot reproduce. It is the sole property of living beings. But on the other hand, all the living beings cannot reproduce. Say, for example, mule, which is a cross of donkey and horse, it is sterile, it cannot reproduce. The worker bee, which is a caste of honey bee, it is a sterile female, it cannot reproduce. So, although reproduction is a basic property of living beings, but all the living beings do not reproduce. Reproduction can be basically of two types: asexual reproduction, which needs only one parent, so therefore it is called uniparental, and sexual reproduction, in which two parents are needed. One is male and another is female. That is why it is called biparental. In asexual reproduction, all the offsprings which are produced by the parent are similar to the parent and similar to each other. They are genetically similar, or we may call they are the identical copies of the parent organism. Require only one parent, uniparental. Bacteria, protozoans like amoeba, they divide by binary fission. They divide their body into two parts, each part having a nucleus, and develops into a fully grown organism. Yeast and hydra can reproduce by forming a bud, and then the bud separates from the parent and forms an independent individual. In sexual reproduction, two organisms of different sex are involved. They contribute genetic material and a new offspring is produced. Each parent produces gametes by a special cell division called meiosis. The male gametes are called sperms and the female gametes are called ova. Most of the animals, including human beings and plants, reproduces sexually. The fifth character of living beings, that all living things grow and develop. These two basic characters, all living things can grow. They can grow in size, their cells can grow in size, number of cells increases. So, every living organism tends to grow in size. This growth occurs by increase in number of cells in most of the cases, by a cell division in which genetic material remains the same, and it is called mitosis. We may come across growth in some non-living materials also, like the size of mountain grows. During the process of crystallization, the size of crystal grows. But in non-living things, the growth occurs from outside by adding the material. Whereas in case of living beings, growth occurs from inside. The material is increased from inside the body and the size of the body is increased. Another feature is development. Development means development of an organism, of a living being, from a single cell stage to a multicellular stage or a mature organism. This phenomena is called development. Then comes adaptation. All the living beings have a capacity and tendency to fit into their environment. They make changes in their body according to the requirement of environment, and that is how they overcome the risk of being extinct. Adaptations occur over a long period of time and may take millions of years. It's not a one-day event. The insects, the birds, the bats, They are developed from aerial life. They have got wings for flying. The creatures which are living in deep seas, like whales, dolphins, seals, they are adapted for cold waters. They have got a very thick covering of fat on their body, so they can protect their body heat. Cacti, camel, lizards, kangaroo rat, they lives in desert where the scarcity of water is there, so they are adapted for living in such conditions called xeritic conditions. Then seventh character is the DNA, that is deoxyribonucleic acid. It's a genetic material. All living things have genetic material. DNA is a complex biomolecule which carries genetic information. And this DNA material is transferred from parents to offsprings. And this phenomena of transfer of genetic material or transfer of genes is called heredity. A DNA molecule contains information of making new molecules by biosynthesis, especially protein synthesis. And you know, every living organism has got a different set of protein. So that information lies in the DNA molecule. And all living beings have genetic material present in the nucleus of their cells. DNA, then a structural part is made, that is called chromosomes, and chromosomes are present in the nucleus. Even viruses have genetic material in the form of DNA or RNA, that is ribonucleic acid. Although viruses, they are not included in this category as they are not made up of cells. Now, on the basis of all these characters, if we just define the living beings, the living organisms are self-replicating, that means they can reproduce, evolving and self-regulating, interacting and capable to responding to the external stimuli. Now, let us consider the basic differences between plants and animals. As you know, plants, they generally do not move on their own. Most of them are rooted at one place, whereas the animals, most of the animals can move. They have got some locomotory organs. Although there are exceptions on both the sides, there are algae who have got some locomotory organs like flagella. They can move up and down in the water. There are animals like coelentrates, like sponges, the poriferans, which are sedentary. They cannot move. Then plants, they have a green pigment called chlorophyll. And in presence of that, they can make their own food by photosynthesis. So they are called autotrophic or producers. The animals, they lack this pigment chlorophyll and cannot make their food. They simply consume the food made by the plants. Therefore, they are called consumers. And since they are not autotrophic, they are called heterotrophic. Then the plants give off oxygen and take carbon dioxide in the process of photosynthesis. Whereas during night time, they consume oxygen and gives off carbon dioxide in the process of respiration. So they perform both photosynthesis and respiration, whereas the animals perform respiration, they take in oxygen and gives off carbon dioxide. Then plant cells have cell wall, which is made up of cellulose. The animals do not have a cell wall made up of cellulose. Their cells are covered by simple plasma membrane. Then plants have either no or very basic ability to sense. Though there are sensory organs in plants also, but there the ability of sensation is very limited, and especially nervous system is absent in case of plants. The animals have got much developed sensory system. They have a different type of sense organs for balance, sense organ for sensing light, for sound, for feeling pain and everything, because animals do have a developed nervous system. Thank you.